Alright guys, today we're going to talk about subtraction of real numbers. Now, to subtract real numbers, alright, you're going to basically be adding the opposite. We've already talked about adding, we've already talked about opposites. Alright, so subtracting, basically if you have a minus b, you have a minus b, alright, that's the same as a plus the opposite of b. Okay, so you change, basically what you're doing is you're changing the subtraction to addition and the second number to its opposites. The number right after the subtraction sign changes to its opposite, and then you use those rules for adding that we already went over. Alright, so let's go through some examples, kind of refresh your brains. Our first problem here is 14 minus a negative 4. Alright, so we're going to keep the first number the same. It'll be 14. Change our subtraction to addition. And then our negative 4 is going to become a positive 4. So signs are the same, so we add. It becomes 18, and it stays a positive 18 because we're adding two positive numbers together. Example 2, we got negative 6 minus 12. So first number is going to stay negative 6, subtraction is going to become addition, and positive 12 is going to become the opposite, which is a negative 12. Following addition rules, signs are the same, so we add. We get 18. In this case, it's going to be a negative 18 because we want to keep that same sign. Here, number 3, negative 23 minus a negative 6. So we have negative 23 staying the same. Change subtraction to addition. Negative 6 is going to become positive 6. Now here, signs are different, so we have to subtract. This would be like 23 minus 6, which would be 17, and it's going to be a negative 17 because your larger absolute value is negative. Now, let's go over some fractions. And the same rules apply, and it often helps to change your subtraction problem to an addition problem first, then deal with your fraction rules and how those apply. So like in this first problem, we have negative 3/4 minus a negative 2/3. So the negative 3/4 is going to stay the same. Okay. Subtraction is going to become addition. And then we're going to have change this negative 2/3 is going to become a positive 2/3. Now, what we need in order to add fractions is we need a common denominator. Common denominator is going to be 12. So here, this negative 3/4 is going to stay negative. 4 times 3 gives us 12, so 3 times 3 is going to give us a negative 9/12. 3 times 4 is 12, so 2 times 4 gives us 8. So we have a negative 9/12 plus 8/12. Signs are different, so you subtract, so it's going to be a negative 1/12. Okay. Same thing is true with mixed numbers. Let's keep the first mixed number the same, negative 8 3/10, and it's going to be plus a positive 5 9/10. All right, and we have already got a common denominator, so that's to our advantage. One thing you got to remember here is the signs are different, so you're going to have to subtract. So you can kind of think of it as if you had just the whole number parts. This is negative 8 plus now 5 9/10 is almost 6. So let's even think of that as a 6. If you had that signs are different, you'd subtract. It'd be like 8 minus 6. It'd be a negative 2. So our answer should be somewhere about that. So I'm going to set this up vertically because I like visually seeing it that way better. You don't have to, but I like seeing it visually that way better. So negative 8 3/10 plus 5 9/10 is really going to be subtracting it. Now I can't do 3 minus 9, so I'm going to have to borrow or rename this. The 8 is going to become a 7. I'm going to borrow or rename that one whole that I'm borrowing as 10/10 and add to the 3/10 I already have to get 13/10. Now I can subtract. 13/10 minus 9/10 would be 4/10. And then 7 minus 5 would be 2, so it would be a negative 2 4/10, or a negative 2 2/5 when I simplify it, which that makes sense close to our little estimate that we did over here, negative 2. That really matches up, so we know we did it correctly. Okay, guys, now you're not always just going to have two numbers being subtracted. Right? You are going to have expressions where you have more than one number and more than one subtraction. Now, there's a couple different ways you can go about it. Kind of depends on what clicks in your brain. Now, you can either make sure that you either use that left to right rule for order of operations, if you have all addition or subtraction, or you can change all the subtraction right from the beginning to oops, sorry about that, guys. Didn't grab that addition word very well, did I? Okay, or you can change all your subtraction to addition and use the properties to make your life easier. I personally often like to change all my subtraction to addition, then I know they're all addition and I can use those properties a little easier. So for example, in this first problem, we have -6 minus a -4 minus 3 plus 8. What I like to look at this as, I like to go through and step by step change anything. Now this first -6 is just going to stay -6. Now anytime you hit a subtraction, you're going to change it. Subtraction becomes addition. -4 right after it is going to become +4. -3 would become plus a -3. Now this is +8. We're not changing that. It's already addition. We're not changing that. Then the way I like to think of it, sometimes what clicks, you could go from left to right here. I like sometimes to think of it as I can put the negatives together, like -6, and you can do this kind of in your head, plus -3, and then 4 plus 8. And to me, that's almost quicker because the sign's the same you add. So this would be like -9 plus 12. Signs are different, you subtract, you'd get a +3. Like I said, you could have gone from left to right and said, okay, -6 plus 4, -2, -2 plus -3, -5 plus 8. You'd still get the same 3. It all depends on what clicks for you. But I do like changing it all because I can, with addition, I can use commutative, switch the order. So like an example 2, -14 minus 12 minus a -4 plus 7. So again, the -14, first number is going to stay the same. Minus 12 is going to become plus a -12. Oops. Minus a -4 is going to become plus 4. And this plus 7 is going to stay plus 7. It's already addition. Now this is nice because it's already lined up. My two negatives are together. My two positives are together. I switch it all addition because if I needed to use commutative and switch the order, I could. So -14 plus -12, that would be a -26. The 4 plus 7 would be 11. Signs are different. Now we can subtract. We'd get a -15. Okay. So, what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to pause the notes and then flip over your notes and try the 6 practice problems on the back. And then start up the notes again to check your answers. All right? In 3, 2, 1, pause. All right, let's quickly go over these practice problems. Hope you did them all on your own, and now you're just quickly checking them. All right, number 1, pretty straightforward. It's gonna be like -6 plus a -3, which signs are the same, gives us a -9. For number 2, this would be like 1/2 plus a -2/3. We've got to get a common denominator, which is going to give us 3/6 plus a -4/6. Signs are different, so you subtract. So it's a -1/6 for your answer. Number 3, change subtraction to addition. We have -15 plus 6. Signs are different, so you subtract, and it would be a -9. Okay, with number 4. All right. This would be, let's get common denominator maybe here first. Common denominator is going to be 20ths. 1 3/5 is going to be 1 12 20ths minus 7, and this would be 1/4 would be 5 20ths. And then this would be like plus a negative. So you actually end up having to subtract. So it's like 7 and 5, 20ths. Minus 1, and 12 20ths. Now again, you're going to have to rename because you can't do 5 minus 12, so the 7 is going to become a 6, and you're going to add 20, this isn't very neat, is it? 20ths to this, and it's going to be 25 20ths minus 12 20ths would be 13 20ths. And then 6 minus 1 would be 5. And it would be negative because that larger absolute value was negative, so negative 5 and 13/20ths. Sorry that was so messy, guys. Example 5, I would make this 10 plus a negative 5 plus 14, that stays plus a positive 18. I changed all my subtraction to addition. Now, I've only got one negative sign there. And this is actually a pretty easy problem, so I don't have to put stuff together. 10 plus a negative 5 is 5. And now I have all positives, so it's making my life a little easier. Basically, I have 19 plus 18, which is 37. Here again, I like to change all my subtraction to addition. This negative 6 is going to stay the same. This will be plus a negative 20, plus a negative 12, plus 4. Now, here I'd have negative 26 plus a negative 12 plus 4. And then I have negative 38. Those negatives were pretty easy to add. And then negative 38 plus 4 signs are different. You subtract to get negative 34. So hopefully you guys did okay with those. Let's talk about finding terms of an expression. Okay. What you have to do to find terms of an expression is you got to think of this changing all your subtraction to addition, and your terms are separated by the addition signs. So your terms for negative 3x minus 14 would be negative 3x and negative 14, because you got to think of this as negative 3x plus a negative 14. Okay, and your addition symbol separates your terms. So I'd even want to think in my head of changing this to x plus a negative 4b plus a negative 25. So my terms are x, negative 4b, and negative 25. So in the book, when they ask you for the terms, you've got to change your subtraction to addition. All right, and then finally, we've been talking about functions a little bit already. And it says evaluate the function for the values of x equal to negative 2, negative 1, 0, and 1, and organize your results in a table. So, you gotta be careful though here. If you look, we have y equals, remember this negative sign in front of a variable means the opposite, the opposite of x, right? So now you also see this is function notation, and we'll talk more about that later. But you notice that it's basically said f of x, and we'll talk about more as the opposite of x. So if we make an input-output table, here's your input. Right? We kind of figure we'll calculate our function here, and we'll find our output. Okay, so they gave you the values for x, so it would be negative 2, negative 1, 0, and 1. Now remember, you got to take the opposite of negative 2 and subtract 7. So that's going to be like 2 minus 7, or a negative 5. Now this would be the opposite of negative 1 minus 7, or 1 minus 7, which is a negative 6. Opposite of 0 is just 0, so this is like you have 0 minus 7, which is a negative 7. And then opposite of 1, minus 7 would be a negative 1 minus 7. Again, that would be like plus a negative 7. So we're looking at a negative 8. So there's our table. All right. Good luck with this, guys. We'll talk more about subtraction of real numbers tomorrow.